Hey guys, Dwayne here. So, in the last few days, I'd say the last few videos I made, I haven't made a video in a couple days, but I've been talking about the situation that's going on with my son and the stuff that he's dealing with. And over the last couple of days, I've had an opportunity to try to talk to him a little bit more about what's going on and some decisions that he could potentially make to minimize some of the damage that his mom and that environment is doing to him. You know, and I mean, it's really tough for a kid to be in this. I mean, if we think back to the situation that we were involved in, then more than likely you guys had a really hard time working through the whole thing yourself, right? The thing that's tough is just wrapping your head around it and then ultimately making the right decision for you. Now, if you were in a situation where you were discarded and you were basically still living in the illusion and weren't ready to make the realization are some positive changes in your life, which that's typical, right? I mean, there's no reason to beat yourself up on that, but in that situation, your situation determined your actions or where you are now. Now, if you were somebody who made the decision yourself, you got to the point where you recognized something was wrong and you decided that you needed to do something about it. If you can relate to that, then you can also understand how difficult this is for a kid to go through this. I mean, because I know for me, that struggle was complicated. It wasn't easy, right? I mean, I didn't wake up one day and just say, you know what, this is a bad situation, bad relationship, and I'm out of here. It took years to get to that point, because there were times in the past where I knew something was wrong and I didn't quite understand it. I couldn't put my finger around it. And I would try to have conversations with her about it, excuse me, all of that is basically, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's not really relevant for the details of it. The point of it is, or the point I'm trying to illustrate is how hard it was. What I'm trying to say is, like I said a minute ago, I didn't wake up one day and just realize that, I needed to get away. It was a long, hard process. And when things started to break down and the actions were becoming more overt, it was still covert narcissistic behavior, but I mean, it was more, less covert, right? It just got hard to ignore. Well, my point is that if you take a child or one of your kids, even if that kid, like in my situation, is almost legally an adult, 5 more days, or by the time this video drops, 3 or 4 more days, depending on whenever I post it, it's still really hard to sit there and have that realization about another parent, because they're supposed to care for you. They're supposed to love you. They're supposed to have your best interests at heart. They're supposed to be encouraging. They're supposed to want to help you succeed. They're not supposed to be toying with your emotions and even pitting your siblings against you. So our role in this is just to try to provide a safe space, right? That's probably a bad choice of words considering the current political environment. But what I mean is an environment to where they can feel comfortable dealing with their emotions and their concerns and stuff. I mean, and think about it. I mean, the other flip side to this is, how do you share with the other half of the equation? How do you share with the other parent whenever, in your mind, you've been programmed to think that these are both arch enemies, and that, there's just this chaos between them. Every time that you say something, or you open up, or you share some concern, it's tough for a kid because they feel like they're betraying the other parent. There's no victory in this. There's no there's no joy. There's no, sitting back and thinking, yay, they finally realized it, or, finally the ex is digging her own grave. No, because you're watching your kids suffer through this. You're watching them be torn apart by it, not really able to understand it, not really able to process it. And it's tough. And we're, the only power we really have is just to be there for them. And that means that whenever these things happen, we have to be really cautious how we respond, because if you respond in any way that breaks down that trust, then they won't trust you. Then opening up to you is not really doable, because they can't count on you to be impartial. And it's tough, guys. It is really hard to sit there and watch one of your own kids go through this, and to go through something that that you went through, and know that there's really not a lot you can do other than to be there to try to pick up the pieces, and to just hope that the damage that's being done is not so great that it's not recoverable. This last weekend, though it was a good weekend, was filled with a lot of that. It was filled with a lot of just trying to wrap my own head around what's going on, how it's impacting him. What can I do to help? And coming to the realization that he really needs to get out of that environment. I even had a conversation with my youngest today, because they go back to their mom's tomorrow. They'll be there for 2 days, and they come back for me for a couple of days. I get to see my son on the morning of his 18th birthday. So I have I can't do a whole heck of a lot, but I have an idea plan that I hope he'll like, and it'll be trying to encourage some projects that he's trying to work on. But anyways, I was talking with my youngest, and I just said, hey, can you try to take it easy on your brother? And she just kind of looked at me, and I said, I get that the environment's a little different, and, can you just try to take a break on him? And the hard part about this is there wasn't really any denial on it. She made a comment about, they're mean to me too, basically trying to say that her two her sister and her brother are mean to her too. But just by the conversation, you could tell that she understood what we were talking about. And I don't know if it'll work, right? I mean, that once you get into that environment, it's really hard to not do it, right? So I guess my point of this video is just to just talk about the ever-changing nature of this process, right? And we can focus on, and I know I've talked about this before, we can focus on how this impacts us. And that's part of it, right? Because we have to wrap our head around that. We have to wrap our head around our own abuse and how to deal with it in a positive way. But then the situation continues to morph into unique and interesting ways, right? And one of those is how it impacts our children. And it's really crazy. It's tough. I mean, it's one of those things where it's it's hard, it's hard to watch. So if you have kids who are going through this, one of the things that you have to remember is how hard it was for us. And it wasn't our parent, right? I mean, we have issues. I'm sure most of us have issues with our own parents. So, I mean, that's a totally different topic for a different video. But our kids are really struggling through this. And at this point, for the majority of us, they're still kids, right? They're not adults yet. They're not, some of us, we do have some that are grown and whatever. I mean, my oldest is 17, almost 18. So, I mean, he's getting close. And it's just, it's just one of those things. I mean, that we just, you don't expect, right? I mean, you kind of always hope that maybe something will change or maybe it won't be as bad or maybe, this is where whenever you look at it, you kind of hope that you were wrong. So, but if you're dealing with this and you have kids and you see them going through this, just try to build the trust that you have with them so that they can talk to you, that they feel comfortable talking to you, that you create that environment to where, you're there for them. They feel secure with you, that you continue to demonstrate through your own actions that you do care about them, that you do love them, and that you're going to be there for them because they're going to need it. They're absolutely going to need it. And I know in my situation that I'm dealing with right now that this is just the first beginning stages of it, because no matter what he decides to do, whether he just keeps it as status quo, whether he decides he wants to not switch houses anymore, or if he decides to pick somebody or whatever. Unfortunately, my son with his disability, it limits some of his options. I think probably if he had the ability to do something different, go in the military or whatever, he probably would, just to escape the situation and not have to pick sides. Unfortunately, in his situation, that's not. He is going to have to do something. And I think he needs to do something soon, because just the way that this is beating him down is just, it's hard to watch. And I don't know how he'll do getting through it. I'm hoping that maybe knowing that he has a lifeline with me, maybe that'll give him the strength to persevere and keep things at the status quo. I mean, that's not necessarily the best solution, but something has got to change so that he just doesn't break. So, all right, guys, just wanted to share that. If if you're dealing with the same thing, just, I'm not to say that, unfortunately, I can't say it gets easier, right? The only thing I can say is that, your mental health and your ability to be in a good spot significantly helps you help your children. So on that, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have something you want to add, leave it in the comments below, and I will talk to you on the next video. Take care.